Okay, so using this analogy of carbon being a waste issue and rubbish on the street, we've got here a pile of rubbish bags and they're all full of carbon dioxide, nice and light. Now this pile here represents my lifetime emissions since I was born in 1964, and every year I put on more carbon onto this pile. Now in truth it probably should be a much bigger pile, but I don't have enough rubbish bags. But here we are, this is my lifetime emissions. And we want to use this as an example of how we can take action to reduce the amount that I put on there each year. Because just by virtue of living where I live, I use electricity, so I use energy generation, how much I eat, how much I travel. I generate new emissions every year that goes onto this pile. Okay, so now I'm living in Switzerland. We have a lot of hydroelectricity here in Switzerland, not fossil fuels. A little bit of fossil fuels, but not so much as a place like Australia, for example, which is heavily dependent on fossil fuels. So every year here in Switzerland, on average, a person adds about 6 tonnes of carbon to this pile. So over here, I've got my new emissions for 2020. Let's get them. So over here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tonnes of carbon here. And every year, by eating, by living, by using energy, I add to my pile of carbon emissions. And here, it continues to grow. Every year it grows, okay? So this is part of the problem because this, of course, goes up into the atmosphere and causes climate change. Now, what are R1 actions? Let's think about R1 actions. So if on an average year, here in Switzerland, I add on 6 bags of carbon, R1 actions are the things that I personally can do to, instead of adding 6, adding less than 6. So for example, I could change my diet. I could eat less meat. I could go vegetarian, which means that I would reduce my carbon emissions by about 70%. You go vegan, it's about 75, 78%. So that would bring my number of bags down to only 2 that I would add on there each year. I could travel less. I could use my car less. I could fly less. Maybe that means I would only add 1 bag per year. Then I could think of some other actions that I could do just to make that basically 0. So instead of adding to my pile, those carbon emissions don't get generated. So these are R1 actions. R1 actions are when I take action for myself to reduce how much carbon that I put on that pile. But remember, the pile is still there. Okay, my pile since 1964 is still there. So R1 actions don't reduce the amount of carbon that I've got up into the atmosphere. It just reduces how much I add onto my pile every year.